continuing discussion of Sri Vishnu Sahasranama. Name 117, Babhruh. Babhruh, Babhruh. Really? Oh. What's his name now? Took from... I see. Took from Tripurari Maharaj, I guess, yeah. All right. I'm in sporadic contact with him. So, Babhruh. Who knows what that means? It's not a very well-known name, nor is the meaning very apparent. It means Vibharti Lokan iti Babhruh. He who supports the worlds. Supports in the sense, literally, he who holds up the worlds. So that particularly refers to Adi Shesha, Adi Kurma. He also holds up the worlds. Now, Varaha picks up, holds the world, supports the earth. Now, how are you going to say that to the scientists, Grantharaj? How are you going to tell them that? Sorry? There are a lot of things before that. Yeah. Many things before that. But we can't wait for the scientists. We can't wait for scientific proof. We simply have to accept this world is held up by the Supreme Lord. You can believe it or not believe it. But He supports the earth. Who can imagine? Who can have such power, strength? It's not conceivable. But we accept that because the very beginning of spiritual understanding is to accept that there is the inconceivable. If we say, how will we explain to the scientist? Well, through scientific methods, as they are conceived of, you won't find it. Because what is considered to be scientific is all that can be seen, touched, heard, smelled, felt. All that is empirically perceivable, and on the basis of empiric perception, all that is deducible. But the very beginning of spiritual realization is to accept that beyond our extremely limited sensual abilities, beyond our extremely limited intellectual abilities, there is much more. And it would be foolish to accept that there is nothing beyond all that we can perceive and intellectualize about. So, who's holding up? How is this world in existence? How is it being held up? The Supreme Lord is holding it. That's all. Simple point. How is He doing that? What does He look like? That we will learn from Him in Shastra. So, in these names, generally they're recited, and the devotees, they also hear the explanations of the names, so that by hearing the name, we will, just as each one comes, just before this has been Rudra, Bahushira, Babhruh. So we'll just remember what are very quickly as we say one name, each name, remember the qualities of the Supreme Lord, by which He is the Supreme Lord, by which His names should be recited, by which His qualities, forms, pastimes, associates, dhams, energies, they should be remembered and glorified. When we glorify Vishnu, we glorify him, not just him, but his his name, form, qualities, pastimes, associates, abodes, energies, they're all glorified together. And in fact, the very fact that we can glorify him in so many ways is because he exists although he's absolute, he's not dependent on anything, but he manifests his qualities and pastimes in relation to others, especially in relation to his devotees. So he supports the earth, literally supports the earth. Another explanation is given as the maintainer, which is somewhat different. To support and to maintain, they're different functions. So how he maintains the world. To support, to literally hold up. And to maintain, that we cannot imagine. That's the problem with our dear friends, the scientists. They cannot imagine how all this is done by a person. How any person can hold everything together when they're spending generations after generations just trying to understand how it works. And actually, the more we know, the more we become aware of how little we know. And that's in any subject. And what to speak of the subject of Krishna, who expands himself as Adi Shesh and with millions of heads glorifies himself unlimitedly and never comes to an end. So, the more one who's actually in knowledge understands how little he knows, and therefore vidya dadati vinayam. Actual knowledge begins with humility, because if one is not humble, he can't begin to learn. One has to learn from others. One has to accept, I don't know, I need to learn. I need to take from others. So if one thinks one already knows everything, that's pride and you can't learn. So knowledge is the beginning of humility. Humility is the beginning of knowledge. And actually that's true also. Knowledge is the beginning of humility, because when one knows means one has some information, then one begins to realize how little we actually know. How much can we know? Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita that he's giving knowledge. Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshami asheshita. Yajgyatva neha bhuyo nyajgyatavyam avashishyate. Krishna says, I'm now telling you all knowledge, both of the material and of the spiritual, by knowing which nothing more will remain to be known. But that doesn't mean that we know every detail of every little thing, but that we know enough of Krishna that the result is ahang sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvang prabhadate iti matva bhajanti mang buddha bhava samanvitaha. Knowing Krishna to be the source of everything, he from whom everything emanates, one with great feeling worships him. So the quest to know more and more and more is that's a natural tendency, you can say, in as much as Krishna knows everything and the jiva is the part and parcel of Krishna. So his tendency is to want to know. In the perverted conditioned stage of life, one wants to rival Krishna, or wants to take the position of Krishna. So you want to know more and more and more, and then knowing, controlling, but an actually intelligent person knows that he cannot know everything. Then knowledge, one should learn to the extent that this can be useful for serving Krishna and for appreciating Krishna. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was a college dropout in the days when there weren't college dropouts, he said that I learned Sanskrit simply enough for my service, that's all. There's no need to go on and on and on. You can go, even learning a language, there's practically no end. There's so many terms. As in English, there's lawyers' dictionaries and medical dictionaries. There are specialized vocabularies for specialists. And in Sanskrit also, specialized terms. So there's no need to go on and on and on learning. But what is useful for our service to Krishna? So I'm getting a bit off the topic there because, this diversion arose because what are we supposed to do? Should we believe that the world is supported by Vishnu in giant form? It's just unimaginable for us. So I've heard that when explorers came back to Britain from Africa and they described animals like giraffes, hippopotamuses, is it? Oh, hippopotami. See, you can learn some more English. I don't know what's the plural. Hippopotamuses or hippopotami. It doesn't really matter. But people didn't believe them. They thought it must be so hot there that they've become crazy. How can there be an animal just so like 3-story high that eats from the top of trees with such a long neck? How can it? What's a hippopotamus? An oversized pig? You don't get such big pigs. So they couldn't believe there were such big or unusual animals, and what to speak of one that holds up the whole world. And what's more, where did such a big animal come from? He came from one of the nostrils of a 4-headed person. How about that, folks? Well, how do you believe? What do you think God's like? Well, actually, he's a giant pig that comes out of the nostril of a 4-headed person. So there you are. Okay. Jai Varaha Deva Ki Jai. We accept. Is it foolish? No. It's foolish not to accept. But like you say, for presenting to the scientists, there are many things that come before that. We don't go out on the street and tell everyone you have to believe in a giant pig that comes out of a nostril, otherwise you're doomed to hell forever. It's not that we don't preach that, but there is Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayati. There is scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead by which one is liberated. From what? Liberation means to be free from ignorance. Then one is free from birth and death, from suffering, from desire, from anxiety. Material desire means material anxiety. So one's free from all this by knowledge of Krishna, which begins with Janmadyasya Yataha, or actually even before that, Atato Brahma Jignasa. So scientific inquiry into the nature of reality. What is the nature of reality? And actually, Atato Brahma Jignasa, this in the Vedic inquiry, immediately inquiring about the nature of reality is inquiring into the nature of spirit. It's assumed that this question of whether there is anything spiritual or not, that's bypassed altogether. And it's just asked, what is the nature of spiritual reality? Whether there is a spiritual dimension or not, that question in the Vedic, what shall we say, epistemology, that doesn't come at all. Vedic ontology. The question of there not being a spiritual dimension does not rise at all. So, but what is the nature of that spirit? Then, Jamadhyasya yataha. That from, because in Sanskritam, yat, well, let's use that. It's used for that or he whom, both. There's no differentiation. So yato va imani bhutani jayante. That from which all entities emanate. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. Yena jatani jivanti. In which all exist. Yat prayatyabhisang vishanti. That into which everything enters and is destroyed. Tad brahmeti, that is Brahma. Tad vijikasasva, that is the proper subject of inquiry. So this is the beginning of Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, to accept the spiritual dimension, which is the source of everything, in which everything exists, into which everything enters, which is the proper subject of inquiry. And then what is Brahma? That is Krishna. So there's a big science. And when we accept that, then we accept the Vedic descriptions of the Varahadev, Kurmadev. It's not blind faith, but it would be also foolish not to accept these descriptions, having taken a course in the science of Godhead. It would be foolish not to accept these descriptions because to us they may seem fantastic or impossible. Because if we think that then that the Supreme must act or be according to what we think should be conceivable, well, that's foolishness. If He is someone who has to conform to what we think should be acceptable, then He's not Bhagavan. What's acceptable either to our imagination or to our sense of propriety. If we think that, well, He can't go around stealing young girls' clothes, that again is trying to fit Him within the little box which we call what we think is correct or possible. So Varahadev certainly doesn't fit into that box. Therefore we worship him. Varahadeva. We don't worship any Varaha, any pig, but Varahadeva. We certainly worship him. So, the next name. Visvayonih. Vishva is a well-known word which means the universe. And Yoni is also a fairly well-known word which means womb is the normal meaning. Or there may be many meanings, but Yoni is the most common usage of this term, Visvayonih. So the womb of the universe. So that this name is understood to mean the cause of this world, or that from which the universe comes. Now, a previous name was Vishvareta. Reta means semen. He's the seed of the universe. And he's also Visvayoni. He's also the womb of the universe. In Vedic understanding of the child, I'm talking about human child here, comes from the mother, but the child, of course, the child is the child of two parents, but is specifically known as the child of the father, not of the mother, because the womb is the point of gestation, or the medium of gestation. And this is borne out by the third canto of Bhagavatam description. The life is given, or the jiva enters the womb via the semen of the father. So the child is the child of the father, not of the mother. Actually both, but if there is any, to be more specific, the child of the father. So Krishna is the father and the mother of the universe. As he states in Bhagavad Gita, Pitaham asya jagata, mata dhata pitamaha. Krishna says, I am the father of the universe, and the mother, and the support, and the grandfather. Krishna is everything in relation to the universe. So any term that's applicable to the universe can be understood to be Krishna. But specifically, he is the father and the mother. He gives the ingredients for the universe. He injects the jivas for which the universe is created. It's not just something which is just there. There are some philosophers, not just modern philosophers, but there are ancient philosophers also, who their philosophy about... Naturally, any philosophically minded person will think, well, how is the universe here? What's it for? And the reply of some is that, well, it's just there, which isn't any real philosophy at all, because you can already see it's there. But yeah, without a cause, a hetu vada, the person that what is that? Satyam apratishtamte jagadahuranishvaram. Hitunanena kontaya jagad. No. What's that? Kama hitukam. That there's no God it's just the world. If there's any cause at all, it's just desire, which is true in one sense. It's the desire of the Supreme Lord. It's the desire of the jivas. But they think that there's no basis to this universe. But yes, the Vaishnavas reply, there is meaning, there is purpose, there is cause, and they explain it in great detail. So Krishna, he is not only the seed-giving father of the universe, but he is the principle by which it comes into existence, it forms. He does that via the agency of Brahma, but he makes it all possible. How everything develops, that is his mercy. He's the cause of this world. He makes it possible. The scientists, they are investigating so many laws of the universe, but who has put this all together? Who has made this possible? Who maintains all of that? How are the laws laws? Of course, the scientists, they don't ask such questions. Grantharaj Prabhu might disagree with that. Some say. I know when I talk about scientists around Rasaraj Prabhu, I have to be careful because you probably all know very well also. He is in and out of here all the time. But, when we say scientists, that's among devotees, that's generally understood to mean materialistic scientists. Or even if they, quote, believe in God, unquote, still the endeavor to try and understand everything by the empiric method is not a very good idea. Presumably they're forced to do so due to lack of Vedic knowledge. But it's a much better proposition to take knowledge from the Vedas. If you're so much concerned to worry about how everything's going on, you can study how the grass grows, or you can just let it grow. You don't really have to know how it grows. Grass grows, let the cows take the milk, offer it to Krishna. Exactly how the grass transforms into milk, you can say that's Krishna is doing. That is his magic. Or you can study in great depth, but it's not that much necessary to study in great depth. You can if you like, but better to take the milk and offer it to Krishna. Use your intelligence for glorifying Krishna, for converting the grass into milk, rather than trying to understand and then denying Krishna. So Krishna is he who makes everything possible. It's not just the whole universe is not going on just simply by some amazing cosmic chance that everything fit into place just so exactly that there are all these laws of the universe and they're all working perfectly and it's all just by chance. And this is the most bizarre. I mean, they may say the Adi Varaha, the idea of the giant boar holding the universe. They say, well, that's silly. But their idea is so amazingly, it's quite amazing how Krishna's Maya bewilders people with such intelligence to make such basic mistakes that they're actually convinced that because they have studied some of the laws of the universe, that they're convinced that this proves that there's no God in control. It's quite amazing. When actually everything they study should convince them that there is a God in control. Around the other way. So he is the cause of this world, and by him, everything. It's because of him that everything is going on so smoothly. Maya dhakshena prakriti suyaste sacharacharam. Hetunanena konteya jagad viparivartate. The whole universe is running on by his direction, by his supervision. Now, another important meaning of the name Visvayonih is one who unites his devotees with himself. He brings it, so here the word yoni is similar to yoga, uniting. Oh, where's that? So, similar to you. So, he who unites his devotees to himself. So, ultimately he brings his devotees to himself. We follow the processes of bhakti, sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. These are 3 stages, of which the beginning stage is sadhana bhakti, which are offered the rules and regulations to be followed by persons who desire to be of consciousness so pure that we can access Krishna. But we may follow all these processes. Oh, well, that's it. I thought I had another 2 minutes, but I was wrong. Krishna is also time, and even if the clock is wrong, someone's clock is wrong, we have to observe that. Okay, Hare Krishna.